What if the one place you run to for safety ends up changing your entire life forever? The dusty wheels of the westbound train screeched against the iron rails as it pulled into Dusty Creek Station. Clara Mayfield pressed her face against the grimy window, watching the unfamiliar landscape of New Mexico territory unfold before her eyes. Red mesas stretched endlessly under a burning August sun, and tumbleweeds drifted across empty plains like silent ghosts. It was wild, harsh, and nothing like the manicured gardens of her Philadelphia home. She was only 19, yet she had run farther than she ever imagined possible. Dressed in a simple traveling dress, instead of the silk gowns she used to wear, she clutched a worn carpetbag to her chest. Inside it were the few things she owned now. Or rather, the things she had stolen away with in the middle of the night. Her mother's emergency funds, a few clothes, a small prayer book, and a birth certificate with a name she wasn't planning to use anymore. "End of the line, miss," the conductor called, eyeing her with open curiosity. Young ladies of fine upbringing did not travel alone. And especially not to frontier towns like this. "Thank you, sir," Clara said softly. Her voice still carried that polished Eastern accent she was trying so hard to hide. She stepped onto the platform and was hit by dry heat and a sharp smell of horses, sweat, leather, and dust. Dusty Creek was small, rough, and loud in a way she had never known. Men called out to one another. Horses snorted restlessly. The Imperial Saloon's bat-wing doors banged open again and again as drunken cowboys wandered in and out. Clara had no real plan. All she knew was that she had escaped. 3 days earlier, her father had informed her she was to marry Theodore Blackwood, a railroad tycoon 40 years older than her, a man with cold eyes and wandering hands. Their engagement party had already been announced, her wedding gown fitted, her mother too frightened to fight for her. Her father eager for the money and connections the marriage would bring. Clara had run because she could see her future too clearly, a gilded prison she would never escape. But she hadn't expected the frontier to be this wild. She took only 10 steps before a group of rough men lounging outside the saloon turned toward her. "Well, well," one of them said with a grin, "looks like Christmas came early." Her heart lurched. She quickened her pace, but they moved in front of her with lazy confidence. The biggest one, with greasy hair and missing teeth, blocked her path. "Where you headed, pretty lady?" he asked. "Ain't safe to be wandering by yourself." "Please excuse me," Clara said firmly, trying to step around him. His hand shot out and grabbed her arm. "Now don't be unfriendly, we're just trying to welcome you proper." Panic shot through her. She opened her mouth to cry out. A shadow fell across them. The lady said, "Excuse her, Bart." The voice was deep and calm, but carried a sharp edge that made the men go still. Clara turned. A tall man stood behind her. He rested one hand on the Colt, .45 at his hip, but he didn't draw it. He didn't need to. His presence alone shifted the air. He was broad-shouldered, steady, and completely sure of himself. His dark shirt clung to a strong frame. Sun had weathered his jawline and dusted his skin in bronze. Everything about him looked carved from the land itself. But it was his eyes she noticed most. Gray, steady, unreadable, and watching everything. "This ain't your business, Caldwell," Bart muttered, though he let go of Clara's arm. "Everything in this town is my business when it comes to men harassing women," the stranger said. Clara looked at the badge on his vest. No, not a sheriff's star. It was a ranch brand burned into metal. Triple C. "And even if she were a saloon girl," the man added, his voice cool, "which she clearly isn't, you still ain't got the right to lay a hand on her." Bart opened his mouth, but the stranger stepped closer. "Move along," he said calmly, "before I decide you need cooling off in my horse trough." The group grumbled, but they moved. No one wanted to challenge this man. Soon Clara was alone with him. "Thank you," she breathed. He gave a small nod and tipped the brim of his hat, polite but distant. "Ma'am." Up close, she saw he was perhaps 30. A day's stubble shadowed his jaw. His eyes held a quiet sadness she didn't understand yet. She hesitated. Then she chose the name she'd prepared on the train. "I'm Catherine Mills." He studied her face for a moment. If he detected the lie, he didn't say. "Ethan Caldwell," he said. "You traveling alone?" "Yes," she answered, lifting her chin. He simply nodded. No judgment, no surprise. "Hotel's that way," he said. "Tell Martha I sent you. She runs a good place." Clara noticed the ranch brand again. "You own a ranch?" she asked. "Triple C," he said. 5 miles north. Biggest spread in the county." He spoke without pride. Just simple fact. "You planning to stay in Dusty Creek long?" he asked. "I haven't decided," she said quietly. Something flickered in his gray eyes. Not surprise, not curiosity, almost recognition. "A word of advice," he said. "This ain't Philadelphia." Her breath caught. Had she slipped? He continued. "The frontier has its own rules. Folks out here can spot someone running from something. I'm not." "You are," he said softly. "Clean hands, Eastern accent you're trying to bury, one bag, fear in your eyes." Heat filled her cheeks. Shame and anger mixed painfully inside her. "You don't know me," she whispered. "No," he agreed, "but I know the look." He stepped back, touched his hat again, and turned away. "Mr. Caldwell," she called impulsively. He paused. "Why did you help me?" For the first time, she saw something vulnerable flicker across his face. "Because," he said quietly, "once upon a time, someone helped me when I was running too." Then he walked away, leaving Clara standing on the dusty street with her heart pounding. And for the first time since she boarded the train, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Was running enough to save a person, or did the past always find a way to catch up? 3 days passed at the Dusty Creek Hotel, and each day, Clara, now calling herself Catherine Mills, tried to build a new life. She worked laundry at the Henderson farm until her hands blistered. She cooked simple meals for Martha in exchange for reduced room rates. She even learned the town's rhythms, which hours were calm and which were dangerous. Yet every night, as she lay in the narrow hotel bed, her thoughts drifted back to the same face. Ethan Caldwell. The way he had stepped between her and those men. The calm that wrapped around him like armor. The sadness in his eyes that made her wonder what he'd lost. The quiet strength that made her feel safe in a world where safety was rare. On Saturday morning, a dust storm rolled through town. Clara tied her bonnet tightly and walked to Garrison's general store. Mrs. Garrison had told her Ethan usually rode into town for supplies on Saturdays. Clara's heartbeat thudded in her throat. She wasn't sure whether she hoped he would be there or feared it. She didn't have to wonder long. Through the blowing dust, a tall figure on horseback appeared. Ethan dismounted, tied his horse, and walked toward the store with that steady, controlled stride of his. Clara gathered her courage. "Mr. Caldwell." He turned, and she saw recognition flicker in his gray eyes. "Miss Mills?" he said, still in Dusty Creek. Quote, "Yes," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I heard you might be looking for a housekeeper at your ranch. I'd like to inquire about the position." He studied her, taking in her worn dress, her blistered hands, the determination in her face. "Where'd you hear that?" he asked. "Mrs. Garrison mentioned it, and I've been working at the Henderson farm. They can tell you I work hard." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her with that quiet way of his, as if weighing not just her words, but her courage, her truth, the things she wasn't saying. "Can you cook?" he asked, finally. "Yes," she replied. "Simple food, but good." "The job's hard," he warned. "Up before dawn, meals for a dozen men, cleaning, laundry, mending, long days." "I can do it," Clara said. "I want to do it." His eyes softened, just a little. $30 a month plus room and board, he said. "It's fair. You'd live in the main house. Sunday afternoons off." "That's more than fair," Clara said. "One more thing," Ethan added. "The ranch is isolated. No other women, besides Miguel's wife. Some find the loneliness difficult." "I'm not afraid of solitude," Clara said. He nodded once, the decision made. "Can you be ready Monday morning?" he asked. "I'll send someone to fetch you." "I'll be ready," As he stepped past her to enter the store, she found herself asking, "Mr. Caldwell?" He paused. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me yet," he replied. "The frontier tests everyone. We'll see if you're still grateful after a month at the Triple C." That night, Sheriff Dalton arrived at the hotel again. He sat across from Clara at the dining room table, eyes sharp as a hawk's. "So," he said, "you're heading to Caldwell's ranch?" "Yes," Clara answered. "He doesn't take just anyone," Dalton said. "Man's particular about who he lets onto his land, which means he must see something in you." Clara stayed silent. Dalton leaned forward. "I checked train records," he said quietly. "There's no Catherine Mills who traveled west this month. Not from any station east of the Mississippi." Fear chilled her blood, but she kept her face still. "Maybe your records are incomplete," she said. "Maybe," Dalton replied. "Just remember, if trouble follows you, it lands on all of Dusty Creek." "I don't intend to cause trouble," she said. "Trouble doesn't need an invitation," he said, rising. "It just needs a reason." Clara barely slept that night. On Monday morning, she stood outside the hotel with her carpet bag. A wagon approached, driven by Miguel Martinez, Ethan's foreman. He greeted her kindly and helped her aboard. Dusty Creek faded behind them as they rode out into open land. 5 miles later, Clara gasped. The Triple C Ranch spread across the valley like a small kingdom of its own. White adobe buildings, a wide veranda, tall barns, corrals filled with horses. Men moved with purpose, handling cattle, fixing fences, cleaning tack. It was alive. Busy. Strong. Miguel helped her down just as Ethan stepped out of the barn. He walked toward her with that steady calm that seemed to anchor everything around him. "Welcome," he said. "Come inside. I'll show you the house." Inside, the walls were warm adobe. The floors swept clean. Everything smelled faintly of wood smoke and saddle leather. Miguel's wife, Senora Martinez, showed Clara the kitchen, the pantry, the washing area. They spoke in simple English and gestures, but Clara felt immediate warmth in the older woman's smile. By evening, Clara had cooked her first supper. She carried plates to the long table, feeling the ranch hands, curious eyes on her, but hearing only polite, "Thank you, ma'am," as she set each dish down. Ethan ate with the men, not above them, just beside them. As she cleaned dishes later, Ethan appeared in the doorway. "How was your first day?" he asked. "Different," Clara admitted, "but good." "You did well," he said quietly. "Thank you." He hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yes." "Why are you really here?" The dishcloth stilled in Clara's hands. Her heart pounded so loud she worried he could hear it. She stared at the wash basin, unable to meet his eyes. "I can't go back," she whispered. "Please don't ask me to." Ethan didn't push. Instead, he simply nodded. "We all have our reasons," he said softly. "Just remember, secrets have a way of showing themselves out here." When he left, Clara stood alone in the quiet kitchen, hands trembling, heart aching. Through the window, she saw the sky turn deep purple over the desert. She wasn't safe. Not yet. But she was alive. And she was learning. And for the first time in her life, she was choosing her own path, even if it scared her. What if the place meant to test you becomes the only place you finally belong? Weeks passed on the Triple C Ranch, and Clara, still living under the name Catherine Mills, slowly found her rhythm. She woke before dawn to boil coffee and bake biscuits. She swept the long porch every morning, cooked hearty meals at noon, and mended shirts by lamplight at night. Her hands toughened, her muscles strengthened, her fear slowly faded. And each day, Ethan Caldwell became more of a mystery she wanted to understand. He taught her to ride, patient as she learned to balance and trust the mare he picked for her. He showed her the land, mesas that glowed gold at sunset, dry riverbeds that flooded in storm season, and hidden springs that kept the ranch alive. He worked beside the men but carried a quiet authority that no one questioned. Whenever he spoke, Clara found herself listening. And whenever he looked at her, she felt seen in a way she never had before. One night, a storm rolled across the valley, rain slashing sideways, thunder shaking the walls. Clara worked in the kitchen, preparing supper for the drenched ranch hands returning from a long day moving cattle. Just as she set a pot on the stove, the door burst open. Billy stumbled in, soaked and breathless. "Miss Catherine, come quick, the boss. He's hurt real bad." Her heart dropped. "What happened?" she cried, already grabbing clean linens. "Lightning spooked his horse. He fell near Devil's Canyon. Miguel's bringing him in now." Clara rushed outside, the storm drenching her instantly. She saw Miguel and Cookie Tom carrying Ethan between them, his arm limp, blood streaming from a cut above his brow. "Bring him inside," she ordered, surprising everyone, including herself. They laid him on his bed. Clara forced her hands to stay steady as she assessed the injuries. The head wound looked deep, but not deadly. The shoulder, however, was dislocated. Miguel shook his head grimly. "I can fix this," he said, but someone must hold him down. "I'll do it," Clara said without hesitation. Ethan groaned, half-conscious. "Clara." "I'm right here," she whispered. Miguel counted to 3 in Spanish, and pulled. The sickening pop made Clara flinch, but she held Ethan firmly as he gasped in pain, gripping her hand with surprising strength. "You're safe," she whispered, brushing his hair back. "You're home." Throughout the night, Clara stayed at his bedside. Ethan drifted in and out of fevered dreams, calling for men he'd lost in the war, begging for help during battles he'd never spoken of. He muttered apologies to ghosts and warnings to shadows. Then, at one point, he gripped her hand and whispered, "Don't let them take you, Clara." She froze. Her real name, he knew. But he was burning with fever. His mind wasn't clear. He had probably heard Sheriff Dalton's suspicions. Maybe he had guessed long ago. Yet he had never pushed her, never cornered her, never threatened her. He had simply given her a place to breathe. Just before dawn, his fever broke. Clara's head rested against the bed when his voice pulled her awake. "You stayed," he murmured. "You asked me to," she answered. His gray eyes softened. "Did I say anything strange?" "You said nothing that matters," she said, but something had changed. Between the storm, the fear, and the long night, walls had fallen. Later that evening, when Ethan was sitting upright and recovering, he said quietly, "I know you're running from something, and I know you fear it will follow you here." Clara swallowed hard. "Mr. Caldwell." "Ethan," he corrected. She took a shaky breath. "Ethan, my name isn't Catherine Mills." He nodded once. "I know." Clara's heart pounded so loud she barely heard her own voice. "I'm Clara Mayfield. My father promised me as a bride to a man I could never marry. A man who—" Her voice broke. "I ran, and now my family is searching for me." Ethan didn't look surprised. He didn't look angry. He didn't look betrayed. He looked sad, as if he understood that kind of desperation all too well. "You don't need to explain further," he said gently. "The world you ran from doesn't exist here, and the people looking for you won't find you on this land without going through me." Her breath hitched. "You believe me?" "I believe you," he said simply. "And I'll protect you." Her eyes burned with tears she had been holding in for too long, but danger had a way of finding those who ran from it. 2 weeks later, just as Ethan was healed enough to walk the yard again, trouble returned. A group of horsemen crested the ridge, dust rising behind them like smoke. Clara felt the ground drop from beneath her feet when she recognized the man leading them. Charles Harrington, the personal attorney of Theodore Blackwood. He dismounted with a smug smile. "Miss Mayfield, or should I say, Mrs. Caldwell." Clara's blood chilled. "You have no right to be here," Ethan said, stepping in front of her. Harrington held up folded papers. "Your father signed a binding engagement contract with Mr. Blackwood. Clara Mayfield belongs to him. And she also stole valuable jewelry when she ran. So Mr. Caldwell, harboring her makes you a criminal." The ranch hands spread out behind Ethan. Cookie, Tom, Billy, Miguel, every man there stood ready. "This woman is not property," Ethan said calmly, "and you'll leave my land." Harrington's smirk deepened. "If she doesn't return willingly, we'll involve federal marshals." "Then do it," Ethan said. "But try stepping 1 foot closer, and you'll learn how the Triple C handles threats." Tension crackled in the air like lightning. Finally, Harrington's confidence cracked. He retreated, mounting his horse. "This isn't over." "Yes," Ethan said, "it is." That evening, after the horseman disappeared over the ridge, Clara trembled in Ethan's arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I brought danger to your home." "No," he said fiercely, "you brought life back into it." The night fell quiet. The desert stretched endlessly beyond them. Ethan lifted her chin softly. "You're safe here, Clara," he said. "And I meant what I said the first day we met. Someone helped me when I was running too. Now it's my turn." Clara rested her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." He brushed his thumb across her cheek. "This place tests everyone," he murmured. "But you're stronger than you know." Her heart fluttered, her breath trembled. And for the first time in her life, Clara felt it fully and truly. She belonged. The past could chase her, the danger could rise again. But she wasn't running anymore. Not alone. Not ever again. Here, in this wild and unforgiving land, she had found strength, purpose, and a man who saw her not as a prize, but as a person worth fighting for. Clara Mayfield was gone. And Clara Caldwell, whoever she was becoming, would face the world on her own terms.